Hello, everyone. It is noon right now. We'll go ahead and give it another 60 seconds or so to let other folks on, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, it's 12:01, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Mercala. I handle communications for the office, and this is about a 20 to 30-minute presentation. This presentation, election night and beyond, what to expect, really goes into the weeds on our ballot processing, and so that candidates and the press and other interested parties, members of the public, can really understand what is happening when we get those ballots in and on election day, election night, the ballot processing that continues to happen Wednesday, Thursday, and in major elections, sometimes even longer, and then the process for the cure period and the additional postings that come after that. So I'm going to go ahead. What I'm going to do is have Molly come on screen, introduce herself, and then I'll take her off screen so we can focus on the slides. So.
Thanks, Mercala. Thanks, Mercala. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I know it's an incredibly busy season with your campaign, so we will try to move through this rather quickly, and just know that we are available for any follow-up questions you have after this presentation. And again, thanks for being here. And I didn't say who I am. I'm Molly Fitzpatrick. I'm the clerk and recorder. I've been in this role since 2019 and understand everything that you're going through. So hopefully this information will be helpful to you. Okay, at a high level, we'll be talking, as Mercala said, about ballot processing, election night reporting, what happens post-election, and how we get all the way to certification, and how to become a watcher if that's something that you are interested in having for your campaign. At a high level, we are allowed to start processing mail ballots 15 days before an election. That, as you all know, we do not have any results tabulated until election night, but we are allowed to start processing. Right off the bat, we start organizing ballots into ballots that are accepted and ballots that will be moved forward for processing and tabulation. And we also organize ballots into rejected ballots. And those are ballots that voters can either do one of two things with. They can do something to have their vote count, or they cannot cure their ballot for some reason, which we'll go over in just a moment. So an accepted ballot envelope is one where the signature is verified by our bipartisan teams of election judges. The signature matches the signature that we have on your voter registration record. Only one voted ballot is in the envelope. The ballot is for this election, and yes, we do get envelopes sometimes with previous election ballots. And once we accept those ballots, the voter is assigned vote credit in the Secretary of State database, known as SCORE. After that, the envelope is opened, the ballot is removed and separated from the envelope to preserve voter anonymity. From there, we flatten the ballot, we visually inspect it for any problems, such as a damaged ballot or ink that wouldn't be able to be read from our scanning equipment. And then we scan those ballots, and the votes are captured in the voting system and tabulated on election day. Rejected ballot envelopes fall into two main categories, as I mentioned earlier. The first category of rejected ballots are those that the voter can do something with in order to have their vote count. We call those cures or curable envelopes. Those are envelopes that the voter has until the end of the 8th day after the election to just to resolve a problem, including if they didn't include a signature, if their signature doesn't match, or if they were required to provide ID in with their mail ballot envelope, if it was their first time voting by mail as an example, and we didn't have ID for them. If it was required, the voter would know if it was required because of the envelope and the instructions. But the voters would get a notification from our office saying, we weren't able to verify your ballot envelope. Please respond to this and let us know that this was you, and we will move your ballot forward for processing. So it's held in a temporary cure state until the voter takes action. After that, or the second category is ballots that we will not count no matter what. They cannot be cured. So that is when there would be, the examples include if there's more than one voted ballot in the envelope, or if a voter returns an empty envelope, or if there's a wrong election ballot, as mentioned earlier. Okay, election night reporting. So we know that this is of the most interest to you all. Late on election day, we will add a link at the top of bouldercountyvotes.gov. It's not there now, but it will be there on election day to link you to our election night results reporting page. We will begin posting after 7 p.m. And so typically what we say is around between 7:15, 7:20, 7:30 is when that first post will be up. And that first posting is going to reflect all the mail ballots counted through like the early voting period. And so after that, we'll continue to add in more and more results as we process those ballots. This year, we have a new process. We've been issuing statewide ballots for several years now, but the process change is that now those ballots are counted in the county they are issued in. So this will be a subtotal broken out in the right-hand column. It will be very obvious on our page. And then we will begin posting updates for several days until we have processed all the ballots we can, except for the ballots. Here's a rough view of our schedule. I won't go through every posting time, but we do want to, we get asked a lot of like, why can't you do more postings? And the reason is because we want to provide as much information as possible strategically. And to do that, it means we provide, or we post more infrequently, but higher volumes of returns, if that makes sense. So we anticipate doing around 3 postings on election night, and then towards the end of the day on Wednesday and Thursday if we need to. So that's our schedule. Another question we get a lot is how many ballots are left to count. We invested in a process a couple years ago to help make this more self-service for voters and candidates. So if you want to know how many ballots are left to count, there's 2 pages that you're going to want to pull up. The first is our ballots counted page. So that's the results page that we just went over. And you'll want to compare that to the ballots return page. And so this is on our website. And what you'll want to do is just compare those 2 numbers. The ballots return data is updated every 3 hours on election day, and it's updated in the days after the election to show how many ballots we have in-house. And so what you'll do is simple math. You'll just compare and subtract ballots counted to ballots returned, and you'll get a rough estimate of what's left to count. This number is never going to be exact because we always receive more ballots than we're actually able to count. And the reason for that is because some of those ballots that we received won't be cured or can't be cured. And so there's always going to be an outstanding difference, but it'll give you a rough estimate. So we want to just caveat that it's a very rough estimate. Okay, the 8th and 9th day after the election. So we are allowed to, by law, and do receive ballots until 8 days after the election. And so those ballots come from military and overseas voters. Those voters have 8 days to return their ballot by mail. And then voters have until 8 days after the election to cure their ballot if their ballot was able to be cured. And then So we receive all those ballots until 8th day, and then on 9th day, which is Thursday, July 9th, we will do another processing day to tabulate those ballots and get them uploaded into our results. So overview of the buckets, there's two categories of buckets. One is the ballots that will definitely be counted, and then there's ballots that could potentially be counted. And the final number will always fall somewhere in between that. Okay, other categories of buckets that will definitely be counted. This is really important to us in Boulder County. We have a constitutional obligation to protect voter privacy and voter anonymity. And to achieve that, we have two categories of ballots and ballot envelopes that we hold back in order to achieve that. The first is ballots. Both of these categories are to preserve voter anonymity, but we will always hold back 3 ballots per precinct district style to help preserve the anonymity for anyone that might come in and cure their ballot, or anyone who is mailing their UOCAVA ballot back. So we basically want to make sure that we have enough ballots in every precinct to blend to preserve anonymity, since voter data by precinct is a publicly available report, and if you voted as well. So we just want to make sure that we are able to preserve their anonymity. There's a little over 1,100 ballots in that reserve status this year. So those will be ballots that are absolutely going to be moved forward for processing and uploaded into 9th day results. The second is voter information protection ballots. These are ballots that come from folks who live in areas where there's a really distinct district style that has an extremely few amount of voters in it. And so those ballots account for about 600 this election. And so what ends up happening is that we combine those ballots together when processing, because there's just not enough voters in their precinct to combine otherwise. So we're combining multiples together, multiple precincts together. And then there's manual process ballots. Those are ballots that came in and had an issue to the ballot. If the ballot was damaged because of some sort of rain or snow or something like that, or if it's too dirty or stained to go through our sorter. It's hard to know how many we'll have this election, but there's usually about 100 of those ballots. So those are all ballots that will be counted. Potentially counted ballots, again, military and overseas mail ballots are one of them. Any ballot that needs to be cured. And then one category we've not talked about is ballots returned to another county clerk's office. And so in Colorado, you can turn your ballot into any drop box in the state and we will get it to the right county. So there is some transfer time associated with that. Those ballots will be processed on 9th day. And then provisional ballots, but with our Colorado election model, there's very, very few provisional ballots. 10 is actually like a high number. It's just usually under 5 actually. So it's a very low amount of ballots. Recount. So we know this is a situation that no one wants to be in, but there are situations where we will conduct a required recount, and then a candidate also has a process to request a recount. Recounts actually happen after election certification takes place. So we are going to certify our election on Monday, July 20th. And then if there's a required recount, we would conduct the recount after that. And then if someone's interested in a recount and paying for it, they have to make that request by July 22nd. And then the state has until July 24th to order an automatic recount, and we'll go through the scenario in which they would do that. So in order for a required recount to occur, the difference has to be less than 0.5%, and that would trigger an automatic recount. And so here's a scenario. You can see what candidate A received, see what candidate B received. The difference between those candidates is 31 votes. So it seems like it's extremely small. You might think, oh, that's definitely going to go to recount. But the difference of the vote total, or the difference between the winner and the loser in this contest is 31 divided by candidate B, which was the higher vote getter, is 0.6%. That's greater than 0.5%, so no automatic recount is required. So this is how it works in a 2-candidate race, and in a multi-candidate race, it's the same thing. You know, if it's top 5 and there's a question between the bottom 2, then you just do that math for those.
Sorry, I meant to take out the slide. This is the multi-candidate math.
So our job is to provide everyone with the information on what we've counted and what's left to be counted. Some media might call certain results, and we do not do that. We do not encourage that. We'll just provide information on what we have and what's outstanding. The final certified results, again, are going to be on Monday, July 20th. We conduct a post-risk limiting audit. This is an audit that should give you confidence that the election was conducted and the election outcome is correct, because what we're doing is validating election outcomes by comparing the physical paper ballot to the way the scanner read that ballot at the time of scanning. So at a high level during ballot scanning, there is an imprint ID number printed on that ballot. That's something that's unique to the ballot. Those ballots are then securely stored, and at the time of scanning, the votes are captured for that ballot in the voting system, and a cast vote record is recorded. That's a report that says how the voting system interpreted your ballot at the time of scanning. And then after the election, each county provides the cast vote record to the Secretary of State to demonstrate how the votes were recorded. And then the Secretary of State uses risk limiting audit software to randomly select ballots to audit. These physical paper ballots that are selected are pulled by our bipartisan judges, and we compare the votes on the ballots to the votes in the cast vote record. And this is what's reported to the Secretary of State. Here's our timeline for the risk limiting audit. It's open to the public and observation. We welcome anyone to come. It's something that we're really proud of in our Colorado election model. We're the first state in the country to have risk limiting audits fully operationalized, meaning that every county in the state is conducting a risk limiting audit. Watchers. We love having watchers, and we haven't had a lot of them this election. So please have watchers come on your behalf to just observe the process. They can come to the ballot processing center. They can come to the vote centers. It's just a really great way to understand what's happening, and it's very flexible. You can do it on a schedule that works for you. You can drop in for an hour, stay all day. We just love having watchers, and we also have a dedicated watcher host who can take you around and explain things to you, answer your questions. We think watchers are a really important part of the process, and we haven't seen enough of them this year. So please attend. There are some requirements: a certificate of appointment, an oath of watcher, and then a watcher training course. Both of those are very easy to obtain, and you'll just bring those to our office, and then we'll get you started. And just know that watchers are welcome in our environment. And that's all we have. Please follow us on our socials. Update your voter registration with an email address, please. So you'll hear about other election information and events. And please encourage everyone you know to vote early. It certainly helps us get a more complete set of election results out to you on election night, which we know is a priority for this group. So with that, I will conclude and ask Mercala if she would like to add anything or if we have any questions.
I don't see any questions yet, but please, we'll give it a minute or so to drop in there. The only thing I think, Molly, you kind of glossed over, we really did want to point out that on election night, we post 3 times, but we're required to post twice by 9 p.m. And that's by Secretary of State rules, and I believe also under statute, Molly. So, but unfortunately, because of that, because we really do a good job of pulling the results almost immediately before 7, that really only leaves us like an hour to process ballots. And timing wise, sometimes that means we're only adding like 1,000 county-wide to that next posting. So, but that is why we follow that schedule in getting 2 postings done before 9 p.m. So we're just really trying to bring attention to that now in advance so everyone knows why that is the process. And then we try to get as many processed for that last posting for the evening. Don't see any questions coming in. But if you do have a question, and you didn't, if it comes to you in a couple minutes, go ahead and feel free to just shoot back your question to the RSVP link, where I sent the link, today, and, we'll go ahead and, get those answered when I get this video uploaded to YouTube, and I'll send around the link for that as well. Okay. We'll go ahead and conclude the meeting. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you all. Good luck. Bye.